Clowntown, USA Part 1. I won't bore you with the whole messy story of why, 30 years ago, I was forced to uproot my life and my son's and drag us halfway across the country. In short, my husband preferred sleeping with his secretary to fulfilling his duties as a father. My friends had either cut ties or sided with him in the divorce. My parents were both gone. I had no support system left, so I started looking for a new place to live. My criteria were simple. 1, it had to be safe. 2, there had to be other children in the area. And 3, it had to be affordable. Clanton seemed to meet all 3. It appeared to be a healthy, small town full of families with tightly knit children. From afar, it looked exactly like what I was searching for. The first crack in that perfect facade appeared the day I went to view the house. The realtor was so bright and bubbly it was almost artificial, but I chalked it up to the naive enthusiasm of a newbie. She babbled about the schools, the house's proximity to 2 parks, and how the HOA president had served on 2 different school boards before retiring. The moment I stepped through the door, I stopped paying attention to her chatter. My eyes were immediately drawn to a gigantic, bizarre mural of clowns. How to describe it? Anyone even remotely familiar with serial killers would recognize John Wayne Gacy's paintings. This mural was strikingly similar. The expressions were disturbingly unsettling, the bodies distorted, the colors garish. It made your skin crawl, making you want to escape your own body. The realtor noticed my expression and chuckled. "The kids love these paintings. I'm sure you'll get used to them." What struck me then was the way she spoke, as if it were a foregone conclusion. I was in no mood to get used to a Gacy-esque monstrosity of colors. I immediately planned to paint over the whole thing before even moving a second item into the house. The rest of the house was surprisingly fine. A washer, dryer, dishwasher, a small, square, grassy yard, a screened-in back porch, and a lovely swing set. I almost jokingly asked if they drank milk from glass bottles like in the old Andy Griffith show, but bit my tongue just in time. Aside from the front hall, the house was nearly perfect for my needs. "So, what do you think?" the realtor asked eagerly as we returned to the front door. I shrugged. "I'm still considering." Her eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of desperation. "Oh, yes. Actually, I can knock $15,000 off the asking price." "20,000, I countered. She stepped forward and hugged me, squeezing tighter than I thought necessary. "We'd be so delighted to have you here, Denise. Please, think it over carefully." I gently pushed her away, forcing a smile to ease the awkwardness. "I will think about it, but I have to go now." I made an excuse and drove away. It was strange. As I drove down what seemed to be the only road running through town, I swore everyone outside stopped to wave. Men watering lawns, women walking dogs, even a mailman on his route, it was like a joke. Part of me found it amusing, but at the same time, there was something unsettling that I couldn't quite place. Back home, after picking up my son, Joshua, from daycare, I sat down to recalculate my finances and do some more research. The house in Clanton was the only place I could afford that would still leave me a little extra, just in case. I rationalized the oddities I'd encountered earlier. Every HOA has its quirks, right? The clown paintings were probably just some art student's side hustle. A small town with a close-knit community wasn't that exactly what I needed. Saturday morning, as I drove the U-Haul truck into town with my son, I started noticing more things that felt off. First, I hadn't properly looked at the town's welcome sign before. Today, I saw it was also decorated with grotesque clowns. 5 brightly painted circus-style clowns leaned against the sign, grinning bizarrely at passers-by. As I drove deeper, I saw more clown depictions hidden in murals, even peeking out from bushes. Though I found it unsettling, I told myself that many towns have mascots or unique themes. Some have animals, some have plants, so having clowns didn't necessarily mean the residents were scary, right? I'd convinced myself to ignore many things in my life, but this was perhaps the time I regretted it most. It was on this drive that I noticed the town truly only had one road, winding in a spiral. There were a few cul-de-sacs branching off here and there, but the main road was like a dark vein coiling into the town's center. To enter or exit, you had to loop around, gradually widening. There were no shortcuts, no straight lines. Joshua looked apprehensive as we drove up to the new house. How do you like it, sweetie? He just shrugged faintly. He still didn't understand why we weren't living with his father anymore, and God, I couldn't bring myself to tell him his dad didn't care. In his mind, he probably thought I'd upended his life for no reason. You'll like it here, you'll see, I lied. I tried to keep the front hall clear to move things from the truck, already planning to buy tarps and paint tomorrow. Joshua took one step inside and grimaced at the mural. What's wrong, big boy? I asked, balancing the fish tank on top of a bookshelf while keeping an eye on him. I don't like it, Mom. These clowns are scary. I placed the goldfish in their new home, walked over, and kissed Joshua's forehead. Don't worry, honey. Mom will take care of them. We'd only carried in 3 boxes when we heard a knock at the front door, which was already open. An old man, with a chest full of silver hair poking out from his unbuttoned polo shirt, grinned at me with dazzlingly white teeth dentures, undoubtedly. Mrs. Hayes, he extended his hand. Spencer Jackson, HOA president, call me Spence. Actually, it's Ms. Hayes, I offered my hand. He didn't shake it but pulled it up and pumped it. I subtly wiped my hand on the back of my shirt. I'm divorced. Oh, his face briefly lit up with a peculiar satisfaction. Well, we're still delighted to welcome you. And this little fellow? He bent down, hands on his knees, to address my son. How do you like your new house? The clowns are scary, Joshua mumbled, eyes fixed on the floor. Spence chuckled. Come on, sport. All the kids in this town love clowns. You don't want to be called a scaredy cat, do you? I have very little patience for people who talk down to children, and it's even more annoying when they directly dismiss their fears. I put down the box I was holding and deliberately stepped between them. Mr. Jackson, it's nice to meet you, but we're busy unpacking. He still looked over my shoulder, smiling warmly at Joshua. I have a little girl around your age, Missy. I bet you'd love to play with her. I fully turned my face to him, urging him for some respect. He looked up. Oh, right. I just wanted to set up a playdate for the little ones. I'm his mother. All playdates and social calls go through me. I started pushing the hand truck towards him, forcing him to back out the door. I'll get back to you once we're settled, okay? He stepped aside, still trying to bend down to maintain eye contact with Joshua. See you soon, son. I grabbed his arm. Excuse me, you have to go. Spence looked at me like a puppy waiting for a treat, then said, Oh, all right. See you soon, Mrs. Hayes. He waved at Joshua and left, accidentally knocking over a stack of books I'd placed near the door. Once he was gone, I hugged Joshua and told him never to listen to strange adults, and that I would never make him be near those clowns. Both of those promises, in the end, became lies. Oh, I wish I could say I listened to my initial gut feeling and turned the truck around, that I reloaded all our belongings and left town. But after years of living with a deceiver, I was used to doubting my own instincts. So, I continued unpacking what was left of my life into that house with the dreadful clown mural. And to this day, I haven't left. Clowntown, USA Part 2. My first few days in Clanton were strange but not entirely unpleasant. Putting aside the pervasive clown theme, it was actually a fairly agreeable place to live. I went to the store, bought paint to cover the nightmare in the front hall, a trick I learned from an art class. A black primer can neutralize dark colors, and then spent a few relaxing days with my son. Joshua, who was in 2nd grade, was as sweet-natured as any child you could wish for. I felt guilty for uprooting him from his friends and his old life, and I promised him he'd make new friends when school started. Clanton was so small there was only one elementary school. Just one. I'd meant to ask where the middle and high school kids went, but then realized that since moving here, I hadn't seen any teenagers. The oldest child I'd noticed seemed to be around 6th grade. Even stranger, and I felt a little terrible for thinking it, but I couldn't help but notice that the children in Clanton were unusually unattractive. Each one looked like they had a mouthful of jumbled teeth, with pinched faces as if perpetually scowling. Perhaps I could have overlooked their unchangeable appearances, but their behavior made it impossible. The children in Clanton were cruel. I mean, frighteningly cruel. They would chase a butterfly for hours just to tear off its wings. It was horrifying to witness such ingrained malice. They were like the most monstrous version of childhood, confined in a box that was both ugly and dark. When I dropped Joshua off for his first day of school, I observed the battlefield in the playground. Boys fought with sticks, girls bit and pulled hair. Their actions weren't play, they were genuine combat. Joshua's teacher greeted me with the same blank smile as the realtor. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Letty, Joshua's homeroom teacher." She knelt down to speak to Joshua, which already irritated me. "Go out and play with the other kids, sweetie, and later we'll have chocolate milk and cookies." "Actually, Letty," I said, trying to suppress my annoyance, "my son has been called Josh since he was 5, and I don't allow him to have chocolate milk or snacks at home. They're considered dessert. Fresh milk is fine." Letty's smile froze, as if she hadn't anticipated my objection. Then she pulled the same stunt the HOA president had when I moved in, leaning past me to get Josh's attention. "Go on out there and make some friends, sweetie," she cooed in a sickly sweet voice. "And later, we'll have fun, won't we?" She glanced at me with a "deal's done" smile. I simply folded my arms and stared at her in silence. Josh slowly walked towards the edge of the playground battlefield, watching the kids fighting, and then looked back at me hesitantly. A little girl ran past, carrying a rock almost as big as her head. "We teach children with love here," Letty continued in that cloying voice, irritating me further. "We don't want to restrict them in any way, it helps them calm down." I gave her the fiercest glare I reserved only for Josh when he was being exceptionally naughty. Josh is always well behaved, and I always speak to him as an independent individual with his own thoughts. I expect you to do the same. Letty's smile crumpled as if I'd just spilled her chocolate milk, but the other parents like how I do things. "Well, I don't." Our further exchange was cut off by a sudden commotion at the far end of the playground. A growing group of students gathered by the chain-link fence, shrieking with delight and jostling for a better view. And what was on the other side of the fence? A clown. Even from a distance, he looked incredibly shoddy. The cheap, fairground-style makeup was grimy and flaking off his face. His clown suit was just polka-dot pants and suspenders over a stained white t-shirt. He hadn't even bothered with a wig, just styled the sparse remaining hair on his scalp into a wild mess. "Hey, kids," he bellowed in a stereotypical clown voice. "Who wants balloons?" The children shrieked with excitement. What was more alarming? A strange clown freely approaching a crowd of elementary school kids, or the fact that when I glanced at the parents, they didn't seem to care. Some were even turning their backs to their cars, while others watched the scene with what looked like relief. "Who is that?" I asked Letty. "Oh, that's Buster Brown, the town clown," she replied with overly excited cheer. "The school hires him. Oh no, actually, he does it for free," she beamed, watching the children clapping with delight. I saw Josh standing in the middle of the yard, still hesitant. Then he started walking towards the fence. I cut across the grass, covering 2 steps at once. "Josh, Mom doesn't want you going over there." Something slammed hard into my back, sending me sprawling onto the grass. I spat grass from my mouth just as the weight left me. I managed to roll over to see my attacker, Letty herself, looking at me with thinly veiled panic. The way she braced her shoulder like a football linebacker was unmistakable. "Mrs. Hayes, I need you to leave now," she said in a robotic voice, as another parent pulled me to my feet. "Parents are not allowed on school grounds during school hours." "Oh, really? So strangers are?" I pointed towards the clown. Letty's face hardened, sharp and cold. "You're causing a scene and upsetting the children. Please leave." "I'll leave when he leaves." A dad tried to pull me back. I elbowed him in the stomach. "Mrs. Hayes," Letty said, no longer sweet or smiling, "if you don't leave, I may have to call the authorities. I don't want my son in a school that disregards his safety like this. I'm taking him home." In a flash, a group of nearby parents formed a barrier, blocking the space between me and Josh. "Things aren't up to you anymore," one man said, his scraggly beard making him look like he hadn't slept in days. "You can't do anything." I tried to push past them, but they stood firm. The school bell rang. The clown slowly retreated into the bushes and disappeared. The children swarmed the chain-link fence like a pack of wild dogs, howling for him to come back. A woman pushed a cart laden with chocolate milk cartons out of the double doors, cooing for the little ones to come get their snacks. The children rushed the cart. I caught a glimpse of my son, Josh, looking at me with confusion. The parents around me gradually dispersed, looking visibly relieved. I really wanted to rush over, grab Josh's hand, drag him out of there, and drive away. But that impulse faded as I realized I was outnumbered. I just have to wait until 3 p.m. when school let out to pick him up. Furious, I glared at the parents and walked back to my car. My house purchase was finalized, but there might still be a grace period to cancel the deal without too much loss. I planned to go home and check the paperwork. But as I closed the door behind me, there was a knock. It was the realtor. "I heard what happened this morning," she said, almost tearfully, "and I feel just terrible." She took 2 steps into my house and then turned pale when she saw the mural. "The clowns are gone," she wailed. "Yes, because they upset my son." "But the house has to have clowns," she cried, lamenting. "Listen, I don't see anywhere in the regulations that says it's mandatory. If you want, we can discuss this another time." "You hate this house, don't you?" Real tears streamed down her cheeks. "You don't want to live here, so why did you buy it?" "It's not that I don't like this place," she burst into sobbing. "Oh my God, I'm the worst realtor in the world." I had initially intended to negotiate my way out of the contract, but instead I found myself comforting her. It was classic manipulation. I was already shaken from the morning's chaos, and now I had to sit and drink tea while she plied me with sweets to get me to concede. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was overreacting. After all, I was new here. Maybe they'd had a bad experience with a violent parent and were just being cautious. Maybe the school used some new Montessori method I wasn't familiar with. Maybe. Looking back now, I see that this town checked every box on the list for a genuine cult. They gave me the illusion of freedom, but slowly cut off every escape route, like a frog in gradually heating water, comfortable enough not to jump out. Finally, I sent her home after almost an hour and a half, leaving me with a list of nearby parent families and a promise to organize a get-together so I wouldn't feel so alone. After that, I gradually calmed down and went to pick up Josh in the afternoon. As I drove to the school, I suddenly saw a group of children loitering on the street, about a block from the school. Josh was with them. Even from behind, I recognized his figure. 3 other children, 2 girls, and another boy were holding Josh's wrists, leading him along. By the way he carried himself, I knew he wasn't comfortable, but he followed without too much resistance. I admit, alarm bells went off in my head. The school letting children leave without an adult escort was unimaginable to me. And just like that, all the calm I'd built up immediately vanished. I pulled the car to the curb. "Josh, get in the car, I won't tell you twice." Josh hopped into the back seat, but a little girl held the car door open, preventing him from closing it. She wore an old-fashioned sailor dress, her hair tied with a bow. Her strangely cute attire contrasted chillingly with her scowling, ugly face, creating a truly unsettling sight. She stomped her foot, grinding her heel into the pavement. "No, he has to come with us. We want to play," she whined, her face red. "I'm sorry, but no, and I have to refuse," I replied. She scrunched up her face, making her look even uglier and more grotesque. "Play, play," she repeated, her face flushing redder. Just then, a man emerged from a nearby house, getting his mail, and happened to glance at the situation. I saw fear flash in his eyes as he hurried over. "What's wrong, Missy?" he asked the girl in a saccharine voice, like Letty. The girl glared at me with hatred. I immediately put my foot on the accelerator, ready to hit the gas. "She won't let me play, I want to play," she shrieked, pointing her finger at me. The man chuckled. "Oh no, we won't let that mean old lady stop you, will we?" He reached inside, trying to unbuckle Josh's seatbelt. I floored the accelerator. The car shot forward, the door swinging wide and knocking him backward. In the rearview mirror, I saw him scrambling to sit up, yelling something after us. "Are you okay, Josh?" "Yes, Mom. That girl made me play pins and needles with her. She wouldn't let me say no." Goosebumps erupted on my arms. "Don't ever play with them if you don't want to, okay? Run away and find an adult." "But Letty is an adult, and she told me to go play with them." I shivered. She was wrong, honey, she was wrong. On the way home, we passed the park. The clown from that morning was still there, twisting balloon animals for a gaggle of tiny monsters gathered around him. He waved frantically as I drove past. I gave him the middle finger in response. Clowntown, USA Part 3. The next day started badly and continued to spiral downhill. I decided to keep Joshua home for at least a day to get my thoughts in order, but that moment of peace never came. I woke up to several messages on my answering machine, one from my ex-husband, complaining about child support being too high and demanding a detailed list of every expense. Another from his mother, accusing me of cheating because her son would never cheat on me if I hadn't done it first. Then, right after breakfast, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I saw 2 officers standing on my lawn. Their uniforms weren't the traditional police blue I was used to, but green and gray-purple, like the town's welcome sign. The tall, blonde one, who had already invaded my personal space, did most of the talking while his partner hovered on the front walk. "We've received a report of truancy at this household," he said in the kind of voice people use to intimidate you into compliance. Without thinking, I blurted out, "My son is sick. I kept him home with me." I tried to keep my voice from shaking. "Ma'am, we also have a complaint about an assault." He narrowed his eyes, glaring closer. "A man claims you tried to run him over." "I don't know what you're talking about," I replied, "and if you don't have a warrant, I'm asking you to leave." He stood still as I tried to close the door. He grabbed the edge of it. "Ma'am," he said coldly, "we like to keep this town peaceful. I won't hesitate to enforce the town charter if things come to that." He let go and shoved the door back at me. His partner, who had been silent on the walkway, just looked at me and shook his head. Then both turned and walked to their car. Before I could close the door, I noticed they had placed several things on my lawn. Small garden gnome-sized statues, and of course, they were clowns. I told Joshua to play in the backyard so I could calm down. I was pretty sure the law only considered a child truant after 3 unexcused absences. Especially once my head cleared a bit, the more I thought, the more my fear dissipated, replaced by indignation at what they'd just said. I hadn't asked for their badges, and they hadn't shown any. Furthermore, he hadn't cited any specific laws or even explained what the charter was, just made vague threats. My fear had turned to anger. Now I knew they were just some security guards paid by the HOA with no more legal authority than a child with a police sticker badge. But what they did have was muscle, and I was on shaky ground. That visit was a warning: cooperate or else. I lingered inside for a few hours to make sure no one was watching. Perhaps they thought I was too scared to make a move, so no patrol cars lurked outside. So I ran. I have to admit, I did it quite foolishly, packing too many things into the car, making it obvious what I intended to do. I saw people in the cul-de-sacs watching me with worried expressions. I should have known how fast news travels in a small town. At the first bend in the spiral road, I could still see the exit. At the second bend, I saw several trucks pulling over near the town line. By the third bend, my heart was in my throat. Men were getting out of the trucks, and now a cherry picker was idling in the middle of the road. As I drove the widening spiral, I saw my escape route being slowly blocked bit by bit. By the time I reached the main gate, a group of workers was huddled together, pretending to be busy but doing nothing. An older man in a hard hat approached my car, holding up a hand. "Sorry, ma'am, we have to repair the power lines here." "How long will that take?" I narrowed my eyes at the car, a wide grin spreading across his face. "Are you in a hurry to go somewhere?" "Hey there, young man," he said to Joshua. Joshua, in the passenger seat, remained silent. "I have personal business," I said. "Can you give me an estimate?" He stroked his mustache with his fingertip, pondering. "Hard to say. Could be a few hours, could be a few days. But hey, I'm sure this town has everything you need. No need to go anywhere." "Thanks," I said, without an ounce of sincerity. I put the car in reverse. So this was how they were going to play it? Fine, I'd play along until I saw an opportunity. Josh looked confused as I drove back towards my house. "Mom, aren't we leaving?" "We will, honey," I said, putting my hand on his head. His forehead felt warmer than usual, even though the weather wasn't hot. But for now, let's wait a bit. If the morning's events were the stick, the social gathering the realtor had arranged that evening was the carrot. It was a luau-style party in someone's backyard, with dads in Hawaiian shirts grilling charred pork on the barbecue, and moms guzzling rum as if there were no tomorrow. None of the parents I'd argued with at school were present, and now I understood that it must have been a deliberate arrangement. The people there seemed almost normal. They greeted my son without being overly boisterous, and the children weren't separated but played in a corner of the yard, overseen by a few moms. I could keep an eye on Josh at any time and saw him running around with kids his own age. I breathed a sigh of relief. "Have a little rum, dear," a man said, sipping from a plastic coconut cup. "So, you're a bit of a troublemaker, huh?" I forced a smile, as if it were just a joke, though the comment stung. "Oh, I'm sure she's not so bad," a mom chimed in, smiling warmly at me. "Just a little rough around the edges. Trust me, honey, there are plenty of single men here who won't care about what you've been through." I smiled back, silently vowing never to get involved with any men in this town. "Heard you had a run-in with little Missy Jackson," the grilling man interjected. "Glenn Waters said you almost ran him over." My stomach dropped, but then, to my surprise, the people around me nodded in agreement. "Just because her dad's the president, that girl is spoiled rotten and thinks she can do whatever she wants," a woman whispered conspiratorially. "Glenn's no better, always sticking his nose where it doesn't belong." I wasn't relaxed enough to trust them yet, so I replied safely, "Well, it seems serious enough for the police to get involved." The man who'd called me a troublemaker rolled his eyes. "Oh, that's just Ted and Dylan, all bluster, no bite. Don't worry about it, honey. Every town is like a picnic basket," a woman interjected, nudging me gently. "Everyone has ants." Everyone laughed as if it were the funniest joke in the world. "But the school," I tried to continue. "Oh, school's just to keep the kids out of our hair a few days a week," a dad said, tapping his finger on his nose. "Real education is out in nature, I always say, but who listens?" "I hate the food they serve," a mom complained. "I always demand they add healthier options. Maybe you and I can team up and make them add more kale to that abominable cafeteria," she winked at me. I smiled back, feeling a little relieved. In hindsight, it was just another trick in their trap, hinting that I could change the town's atmosphere. Now I understood there was no changing Clanton. Its very nature was beyond the control of even those who had created it. I joined in their conversations, letting myself be lulled into a sense of almost relaxation. It wasn't until I looked around that I realized it was already dark. A wave of fear suddenly washed over me. I broke away from the crowd, calling out, "Joshua!" My son came running, grass stains on his shirt, grinning like a Cheshire cat. He wasn't bruised, no scratches. "Mom, there are fireflies here. We caught fireflies, Mom." Josh hadn't smiled so happily since we'd left his dad. Just seeing his face, a joy filled him from playing, and God help me, I softened. We stayed until 10. I waited for Josh to fall asleep in the backseat on the way home. The next day, I took him to school, then left and came back at 3 p.m. to pick him up. I allowed him to play with the neighbors' children, but only when I was supervising. We lived in that house, in that town, and abided by the rules. I didn't delude myself that the pressure disappeared immediately. No, it just shifted to a more subtle form, pressure from those around me. They molded me in 1,000 different ways until, gradually, I could look at Missy Jackson's ugly face without blinking. When we were obedient, we were rewarded. The clown statues on the lawn disappeared. The town's auto repair shop gave my car a free inspection and maintenance because I was new. I even felt like I was free to leave. The town exit was always clear whenever I wanted to go because I always came back anyway. In truth, I didn't go far anymore because Joshua would get sick if he was in the car too long. Every time I asked why, he just grumbled. Being in the car too long is boring. He hadn't adopted his friend's aggressive habits, but I noticed subtle changes in his personality. Nothing overtly alarming, but he seemed somewhat less empathetic. Those first few weeks in Clanton were hazy because that was the last time I had the luxury of being carefree. Now, I had to be cautious every second, not allowing myself any vulnerability. That's what Clanton did to me, and it began one morning, just weeks after I gave up on the idea of leaving. Clowntown, USA Part 4. To say that morning was the beginning of the nightmare would be both inaccurate and cliché. The nightmare truly began the day I signed the papers for the house, or perhaps even earlier, when my ex-husband was too indifferent to even put his pants back on after being caught cheating, then contemptuously tossed me the house keys with a flick of his wrist. No, that morning was merely the beginning of a asterisk greater nightmare the moment I truly woke up. Every minute since then is etched into my memory, clear as a film that can be replayed. I opened my eyes, struggling to push myself out of bed, the familiar monologue in my head idly wondering what kind of nasty song my ex-husband had left on the answering machine today. Then, a sharp pain beneath my heel. The moment I lifted my foot, I saw one of my son's teeth, its root brown, lying on the rug. I looked up and saw a trail of teeth and brown fluid leading all the way to the bathroom. Joshua was kneeling by the back of the toilet bowl, his index finger prodding inside his mouth, his face blank. Then he gently pulled another tooth from his gum, as if plucking a strand of hair. I screamed, rushing to embrace him tightly, my motherly instinct compelling me to protect him with my body. I struggled to pull his hands away from his mouth, which was now a chaotic mess of gaps. I held his jaw, examining his gum line, which miraculously showed no signs of bleeding. What could cause this? I mentally replayed what we'd eaten over the past few days. The only thing I knew that could cause such rapid and widespread tooth loss was severe scurvy, a profound vitamin C deficiency. I tried calling emergency services, and only then did I understand why my ex-husband hadn't left his usual vitriol on the voicemail today. The phone was dead. I tried to keep my voice as calm as possible, pressing an ice pack around Josh's jaw, then helped him into the car. As if things weren't already bad enough, he was starting to develop a fever. I drove frantically to the pediatrician's office. While the gloved doctor examined my son's mouth, I waited, my heart pounding. He was a classic small-town doctor, white-haired and placid. His calm demeanor only made me more agitated. After the examination, he tusked and shook his head. "Just a few baby teeth falling out," he offered a warm smile. "If he's in pain, give him some children's aspirin and he'll be fine." I felt like I was going insane. Baby teeth? Yes. I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but I've never heard of anyone losing all their baby teeth at once. Besides, Josh has already lost some baby teeth before. His bottom front teeth are already adult teeth. The doctor chuckled and shook his head. "Well, that's good because you can't take my job, can you?" He pulled off his gloves with a loud snap asterisk. "Children's aspirin, plenty of fluids." I want a second opinion. Now I myself felt like I was coming down with a fever, my body burning with indignation at this damned town, but I knew it was useless to say so. The doctor's eyes flashed with disdain. "Are you trying to doctor shop, ma'am? I am a medical professional, and I'm obligated to report you if you mention that in my office again. I'll have to contact the authorities." I almost went full throttle on the CPS, thinking they'd be horrified by what the children in this town looked like. But no, the deliberate vagueness, I'd seen it too many times. Their authorities could just be a couple of big goons with bricks to smash my head in, so I just took my son and left, paid the receptionist, and drove home, my face stony. I circled the tightening spiral streets, trapped. "My love," I said, "Mom will find a way to help you, I promise." Josh leaned against the car door, his eyes fixed on the outside. He nodded softly. "Does it hurt?" Josh shook his head. "No." His pronunciation was slightly off now, his mouth having changed. "Actually, it feels a little sad." I drove in silence until we reached a four-way stop a few blocks from home. I stopped. No cars passed from either side, none behind us or coming towards us, but I just stayed there, lacking the will to press the gas. To the right of the intersection was a small park, about the size of a lawn. It had a bench and a trash can, and there was that shabby clown twisting balloons into animals for a horde of ugly children. I had never been that close to him before. I just watched him, diligently twisting balloons for the kids, flecks of white makeup flaking from his neck, his garish red smile painted high on his cheeks. He stood up and met my gaze. I realized that beneath the red paint, his face wasn't smiling. His eyes seemed worried. He looked at me, then glanced to his right, then back at me. I gave a slight nod, almost imperceptible. He looked confused, there's no other word for it. He tilted his head to one side, towards the empty space leading to the school and a small grove of trees. A car behind me honked impatiently. I lifted my foot from the brake pedal. Back home, I helped Josh onto the bed, placed the ice pack, and gave him some oral rehydration solution. Less than half an hour later, there was a knock at the door. I knew exactly what they wanted. When I opened it, I saw a couple standing so close together they seemed to be glued. "Is little Joshy home?" the woman cooed. "We didn't see him at school today. You know how Jody loves playing with him." "Josh is sick," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "I'm keeping him home from school." "Oh, is the little guy got a touch of spring fever?" The man chuckled, as if I were hiding my son behind my back. "No, all his teeth fell out." They all burst out laughing, as if this were the most normal thing in the world. "Oh, I remember when Jody's did that," the husband beamed. "All of them in one morning?" I asked. "My son is older than Jody." Their faces briefly contorted. "Why don't you let Josh come over to play this afternoon?" the woman said, a hint of sharpness in her tone. "Once he's feeling better." I wanted to scream at them that this wasn't normal, that they were crazy, but I just held it in. She was still hugging her face flushed red. "You're so selfish, you know that? You're not the only one involved here." "I know I'm not," I said, then slammed the door in their faces. But the stream of visitors didn't stop. I couldn't even properly care for my son because I kept having to answer the door. "Oh, we're just neighbors, stopping by. We're so worried about you and Josh. The whole town is buzzing." I didn't dare not open the door because I knew what would happen next. Community care, the green and gray-purple uniformed police, or concerned citizens bursting into my house citing child welfare. No more privacy, not even the illusion of it. In the brief lulls, I sat at the table and drank wine, but I couldn't finish a single glass. What was the cause? Air pollution? The chocolate milk they insisted on him drinking? Was it contagious? Or had someone secretly taken my son during school hours to inject him with something? Then I realized I hadn't been up to check on Josh in a while. The visits had dwindled, and I noticed the house was eerily silent. The small sanctuary I'd created for my son next to the TV was empty. His bed was empty. The bathroom was empty. Josh was gone from the house. I went to the backyard and almost cried with relief when I saw him. He was squatting in my untouched flower bed. I choked back a sob as I approached. "Joshua, my precious boy, they're trying to take you away from me." Josh looked up, his hands clasped behind his back as I approached. "Josh, honey, are you okay?" He nodded. "I feel much better, Mom." God, I could vaguely see swollen bumps on his gums where several new, chaotic teeth were erupting. "What are you doing here, sweetie?" "I'm making the cat fly, Mom. It's so much fun. Jody taught me. Do you want to see?" At the edge of the fence, a scruffy, fake cat was creeping along. Josh grabbed it, taking its tail. Time seemed to slow down then. I knew what he was about to do just before he started swinging the poor animal like a lasso, but I couldn't stop him. Josh extended his arm, spinning the cat as if he were swinging a rope. I quickly grabbed his wrist. The cat's tail, its fur matted and falling out, slipped from his hand, sending the animal flying. It landed with a painful thud, then limped away. I grabbed Josh's shoulders, shaking him hard. "Josh, you are never to do that again," I growled. "That's cruel. I will not allow you to be cruel to animals." "You're being funny," he said. "They're wrong, completely wrong." Josh narrowed his eyes at me, looking as if he was about to cry. Instead, he suddenly brightened and lightly punched my nose. The pain jolted through me. "Daddy," he giggled, then ran off. I was rubbing my nose when I heard a splintering sound. Looking up, I saw a loose section of the fence had been pushed aside. Josh had disappeared through the gap. There was no way I could fit. I ran to the front door, rummaging through my purse for my car keys, only to find the guy from the auto repair shop with both hands deep in my engine. "Ah, Mrs. Hayes," he looked up, his face blank. "Trying to fix your car here. This thing seems to have a problem." He held up a greasy piece of metal that looked more like part of a jet engine. "It'll take a few hours, maybe a few days." I swept my gaze across my lawn. More clown statues had crowded into the empty spaces, each one grinning nastily at the house. Perhaps every nosy visitor earlier had left one or two statues as a gift before leaving. "Excuse me," I mumbled. I stepped inside, then reappeared with my ex-husband's old golf driver. I smashed every single clown statue, their plaster shattering into dust. When I was done, I turned to the sweating mechanic. "Good evening," I said, then walked straight into the house. Clowntown, USA Part 5. I sat on the living room sofa, silently watching my life fall apart around me. I could still faintly hear the mechanic outside, tinkering with my car, undoubtedly to ensure it would never run again. My son had run off with the monstrous children of the town that held us both captive. I knew there were many things I could do. Walk out into the world and return with actual police, or hold a knife to the mechanic's throat and force him to fix the car, then drive maniacally around town until they released my son. But the me of then wasn't the me of now. My mind was stuck in a loop of panic, and one thought kept recurring, no matter how much I tried to push it away. The clown knew something. I remembered his eyes when he looked at my son. Someone whose livelihood was clowns should be delighted to see a new convert, but no, he seemed pained by my son's change. It was the first natural reaction I had seen since coming to this town. I waited until nightfall. The mechanic had left hours ago, scattering my car parts all over the driveway. The clown statues I'd smashed were still there, but new ones had been placed in the empty spots, so densely packed that the grass was no longer visible. I stifled a surge of anger and slipped out of the house. I had no clear plan. I carried a kitchen knife for protection. Otherwise, I was unprepared. What would I do? What would I say? It depended on the clown. I didn't follow the main road but cut through backyards, sometimes climbing fences. I was constantly alert, wary of being followed, but as I approached the school, I thought no one was tailing me. South of the school was a baseball field and a soccer field, and further still, a cluster of trees, remnants from the town's original planning. I crept through the bushes, not even knowing what I was looking for until I heard canned laughter emanating from a TV. Among the trees, there was a makeshift tent made of corrugated metal sheets. Through a window, I saw light spilling out. I flattened myself and peeked inside. There were only 4 pieces of furniture: an iron bed, a small wooden cabinet, a bench holding a black and white TV, and a folding chair. The clown sat on the folding chair, drinking from a bottle, watching a Roseanne rerun. I glanced around for a weapon, found none. So I decided to enter through the door, positioning myself where he could clearly see me, so there would be no element of surprise. I simply opened the door and walked in. The clown looked up. "Oh, hello," he said, as if reuniting with an old friend. "I suppose you'd come eventually." His real voice was deep and gentle, a stark contrast to the bellowing voice he used to entertain children. I still clutched the knife in my pocket. Up close, he looked even more pathetic than I'd seen from afar. Large patches of white makeup were flaking off. Perhaps he never bothered to wash it off, just added more each time. His wig was crooked, revealing streaks of gray. His eyes, outlined in black paint, were bloodshot. He forced a smile, then took another swig from his bottle. "Sit down," he said, "or don't, whatever you prefer." "Where do I even begin?" I asked. "You're Buster Brown, right?" He grimaced. I hate that name, just call me Arthur, that's my real name, and you're Mrs. Hayes." "Miss Hayes, I'm divorced." He clicked his tongue. "So they got you like that. Me, I got laid off from the steel mill and they got me then. At first I thought, where else can I find a place this good? Then it was too late. They found your weakness, didn't they? Made you feel helpless, didn't they?" This was the most normal conversation I'd had since arriving here. "Do you know what's happening to my son?" His face fell. The sweet little boy, what was his name? That wretched Missy just calls him the new kid. "His name is Joshua." The clown gave a sad, small smile. "Oh, my boy's name started with a J too. Jeremiah, he's over there." He pointed a trembling finger towards the wooden cabinet. On it was a picture frame made of popsicle sticks. In the picture, a red-haired, big-eared boy in an 80s-style brown striped shirt grinned mischievously, revealing a gap where his front tooth should be. It was taken when he was 8, before they came to this place. He took another swig of liquor. "Sorry if I'm rambling." "It's been a long time since I talked to anyone. God, it's been years." "What's happening to my son?" I demanded, my voice harsh. He gave me a pitying glance. "Sorry, you've noticed he's changing, haven't you? All the kids here look messed up, like they're sick." I nodded. "It's this town, it changes people. Wait." He groaned softly, rising from the chair. The clown hobbled to the cabinet, opened the top drawer, and rummaged for a moment. He pulled out 2 photographs and tossed them onto the chair he'd just vacated. Took me forever to find these 2, from back before the town got so good at erasing its tracks. The top photograph seemed to be from the 1900s, the kind where people posed with deceased loved ones in coffins. 5 men, or rather, 5 corpses stared blankly into the lens. Their lips and noses were swollen, their limbs bloated, their skin so pale their eyes looked like dark hollows. Their hair was coarse and unruly, forming a grotesque halo around their heads. In a terrifying, bizarre way, they looked like clowns. I shivered. "Clowns?" I asked him. He nodded, his face grim. The second photograph was still black and white but clearer, depicting some kind of party. From the clothes and hairstyles, I guessed it was the 50s. A little girl, who looked exactly like Missy Jackson without the ugliness, stood in front, her hair tied with a bow, wearing a frilly party dress that puffed out at the waist. Behind her was a man with a very familiar smile. His hair was slicked back, darker, his face younger, but it was clearly Spencer Jackson, the man who had welcomed me to town. I looked at the two photos, then turned to the clown. "What does this mean?" He sat down on the bed, turning the cheap liquor bottle in his hands. "I'm only telling you what I've surmised. It might be a little off. Don't take it too literally. You see how this town distorts children? Back then, they would grow up to be like those clowns in the picture and then die. The townspeople just accepted it. 1 in 10 turned into a clown, okay, they lived. Then it was 1 in 3. And eventually, everyone." He took another gulp of liquor, as if for courage. "I think at some point, they realized they couldn't stop the process, but they could mitigate it. This asterisk thing, it makes children obsess over play. Perhaps they discovered that if they indulged the children completely, they wouldn't transform into those pathetic clowns. The problem is the children, they just stop. They don't grow up, they don't age, and they certainly don't get prettier." I stared at the two photos, my mind reeling. So, before, the children would turn into these asterisk things, but now they don't. If I don't indulge them, if they get angry, they'll turn into clowns. He shook his head. "They explode." I stared at him, stunned. "Sounds horrible, doesn't it? But trust me, I've seen it with my own eyes. Your son's been running a fever lately, right? That's part of the process. Their temperature skyrockets, then they just pop asterisk like a grenade of flesh." "I need proof," I stammered. He unbuckled his prosthetic leg from the knee down. The clown gave a small smile at my expression. "A souvenir, last time I dared to cross the children." He tapped the metal rod that replaced his shin. "My own Jerry. I only survived because my wife stood right in front of me, taking the brunt of the blast. Sounds grim, but I was lucky. The longer a child is here, the worse the explosion. Jerry had only been here long enough to kill my wife and almost finish me off. If someone like Missy Jackson were to explode," he hissed softly through his teeth. I could only stare at the photos, fear silently mounting. How long had Jerry been here before that happened? 3 weeks. I'd been in this town for almost 2 months. "After I got out of the hospital, they came for me," he continued. "They paid my medical bills and I owed them. We were already at the end of our rope, so it was easy for them to reel me in. They said if I'd been a better father, it wouldn't have happened. They said I scared the children and I had to make amends. I felt myself trembling with anger. So now, I'm like a ghost. I can walk into any store, take what I need. They don't even look as long as I keep the children happy. They leave me alone." He took another gulp from the bottle. "I don't understand," I said. "If the town's atmosphere is so dangerous, why do they invite more people in? Why do they want more children to suffer this fate?" He gave a heavy shrug. "I suppose they think they need to, in some way. They want to believe their way of life is right, and the best way is to get more people to join in. It's illogical. They don't follow logic. I'm just telling you the facts." I looked at him for a long time. "If you live here and never say a word, why are you telling me now?" "It's a bit personal, but I like you. You have grit. I saw it that first day at school. I haven't seen anyone like you in a long time." He gave a small smile, which somewhat steadied me, but didn't lessen my dread. Now I understood just how much danger my son was in and how helpless I was. "I have to find Josh," I said. "I have to get him out, maybe to a doctor, find out what's wrong with him, maybe he can be cured." The words choked in my throat. He gave me a wry look. "No one ever has. Well, a few people have," he said, his voice hinting at their grim end. "I don't care. My son is all I have in this world. I'll fight for him." He raised his bottle as if in a toast. "That's the spirit." Before I walked out, I received a sweaty handshake. "Good luck, and give him hell for me, okay?" "Mr. Brown, Arthur," he corrected. "Arthur," I repeated. "Call me Denise." "Goodbye, Denise. It's been good talking to a real person after all these years." Yes, I said. It's been good for me too. Just before I left, I had to ask one more thing. Don't you ever feel trapped by them? Why don't you just leave? They have nothing left to take from you. He looked at me sadly. I stay for the children, Denise. It's not their fault they turned out this way. Outside the tent, I saw spotlights sweeping across the hills surrounding Clanton. They were searching for me. My disappearance hadn't gone unnoticed. This wasn't the time to hide. I walked along the school grounds, mentally devising an escape plan or thinking about burning down my house as a distraction. I no longer cared for that place. Rounding the baseball field, I heard excited whispers. A group of children stood close under the bleachers, and from within came the miserable groans of some poor animal. To my horror, I saw the back of my son's head and the t-shirt I'd bought at the Grand Canyon. "Joshua," I called. The children scattered, giggling and running away. Joshua ran too, but not fast enough. I grabbed his forearm. "Joshua, you are not to run from me again." My son struggled, his face twisted and distorted. His bone structure had begun to protrude like the other children in town. His arm was burning hot. "Let go, Mom," he whined, his face flushed. "I want to play." Truthfully, I'm not proud of what I did next. I was in a panic, seeing my own son gradually become a stranger, and I couldn't stop it, so I played my last card. "Joshua," I said, "do you remember Dad?" My son stopped struggling instantly. "Do you remember the day Dad took all his things out of the house and left?" I turned him to face me. "Mom can be like Dad too, Joshua. I want to protect you, but for me to do that, you have to listen to me. If you don't listen, I'll have to leave." His temperature visibly dropped. "Don't leave me, Mom," my son said softly, then hugged me. It had been a long time since he'd done that. I didn't deserve that hug, but I wrapped my arms around him anyway. "If there's a way, Mom won't leave you," I said, stroking his head. "But we have to get out of here. This isn't really our home, Josh. It's like the gingerbread house in Hansel and Gretel. It looks kind, but inside it's evil." "How do we get out?" Josh buried his face in my shirt. "Billy said all the dads in town are looking for you." I looked up at the searchlights sweeping the hills. "Mom will figure it out." Clowntown, USA Part 6. I stood in the school baseball field, watching the search parties scour the surrounding hills for me. Deep down, what I longed for most was to run away as far as possible, but I absolutely couldn't. My son, that poor boy who was being transformed, was trembling with a fever and frustrated anger. I had no choice but to go home. I turned our return into a game, sneaking through alleys and dark corners of the town. I told Joshua that if we got caught, we'd lose. I just didn't specify what we'd lose. He loved it, gripping my hand tightly throughout the game. The front door of my house hung precariously, torn from its hinges. I had Josh wait in the bushes while I crept inside to check. It was trashed. Clearly, they had discovered my disappearance. The front hall mural wasn't empty anymore. Someone had spray-painted crude clown figures, not just over the original mural, but on every wall and the ceiling. I searched every room, knife drawn, checking every possible hiding spot. No one, countless of my belongings were destroyed. Joshua's goldfish lay dead on the floor next to a puddle from its shattered tank. Amidst the wreckage, there were piles of clown statues, baring their teeth as if they had done the smashing themselves. I motioned for Joshua to come in. "It's dark now, boys and girls. We're going to play a special game." I pretended we were here to salvage necessary items. I gathered things, tying them into a sheet. I stuffed pillows under our bedsheets to make it look like someone was sleeping. I packed black sleeping bags, food, and Joshua's plastic water bottles. Then I retreated to the basement, hiding both of us there. I arranged some unpacked boxes into a partition, concealing our hiding spot. I was smart enough not to lock the basement door, as that would only arouse suspicion. I wanted them to think I was preparing to flee. I wanted them to look for me anywhere but in this house. I told Joshua that we were still playing, and now it was time for basement hide-and-seek. If he heard an adult call his name, he absolutely wasn't to make a sound. If he made any noise, we'd lose. That night, I slept fitfully on the concrete floor, holding my son in my arms. For a moment, it almost felt like we were a family again. By morning, I awoke to find Josh gone. My plan had a flaw. The basement door was still shut tight, the empty cans on the stairs still undisturbed, but a small basement window was wide open. its inner Loch-Jimid. I had told Josh not to listen to adults calling, but I hadn't been careful enough to tell him not to listen to children, especially the kind of enticing call only children could make. I went upstairs to find something to protect myself. From the wide-open front door, I saw one of the Clanton police officers, the tall, blonde one who had been on my lawn when his partner threatened me. Too late to retreat, he saw me. I quickly walked towards him, grabbing the doorknob before he could rush in. "Hey, Dylan, or whatever his name was, doesn't matter anymore. You're trying to scare me," I said, his coffee breath-smelling face close to mine. "Little lady," he growled, "you're in a whole heap of trouble." I burst out laughing. "I'm serious, you have some explaining to do." He placed his hand on the door. I smiled at him. "Until I see a badge or a gun, you're not coming in." He frowned. He wasn't as aggressive as his partner, and he probably knew it. The officer turned his body to the side, letting me clearly see the pistol tucked into his waistband, just as I suspected. They didn't have badges, they were just town-hired goons with little authority. "Oh, and the child?" My smile widened. "Haha, have you ever shot anyone? Do you even know how to use that?" I mumbled. I'd only slept a few hours, and I wasn't sure when I'd last eaten or drunk anything. He slammed the door hard, and I stepped back, feigning deference, letting him stride in. "Sorry about the mess," I said, looking him straight in the eyes and knocking a clown statue off the bookshelf, letting it shatter. "Would you like anything? Coffee, whiskey, gin?" He looked me up and down, unsure how to respond. "Give me a cup and you'll have to drink with me, have a few cups." I told him to sit in the living room on a hard-backed chair, as someone had slashed the sofa, its stuffing spilling out. I kept babbling as I went into the kitchen to make coffee. "I was going to let you say hello to Josh, but I can't find him this morning," I called out, rummaging for the coffee maker in a drawer. "It's Missy Jackson's birthday today. Was he really invited? A birthday? That's a big deal, right?" "I bet the banks are closed." "You're in serious trouble, ma'am, I'm telling you." "I know, I'm sure I look awful, right?" I poked my head through the kitchen doorway, looking at him. His chair was turned away from me. Being a single mom is exhausting. My hair must look like a bird's nest. He glanced at me, frowning. "I'm serious. You know what you are? You're a troublemaker. We've never had this kind of trouble before. You thought you could do whatever you wanted, didn't you? We're a family here. Everyone looks out for each other. I was sent to see if you'd listen to reason, or if you're a wandering tourist." "I don't know," I said, pulling a knife from the knife block. The knife block was a wedding gift from my ex-husband, a sentimental item. The expensive knife with its Damascus steel blade felt heavy in my hand. "I don't think I'm on vacation. Do I look tanner?" "They say you're an unfit mother, Ted. Dylan said we have the right to take away your parental rights because of your erratic behavior. I just wanted to talk one last time, see if you'd understand." "You're so generous. Do you like your coffee black or with cream?" I asked, then stabbed him in the neck. He gasped, bringing his hands to his wound, his face panicked. I stabbed him again on the other side of his neck, then again in the back of the head. Dylan collapsed, blood gushing onto the living room carpet. I watched him die, trying to understand why I felt nothing inside. Then I realized it didn't matter. I had to go find my son. Spencer Jackson's house was the biggest in town. I didn't even need directions, because I knew it was right in the middle of Clanton, where the spiral road ended. The road was completely empty as I walked, my blood-stained knife in hand, 3 other knives hidden on my person. It seemed the entire town had gathered for Missy Jackson's birthday. It was too easy. The Jackson house was a red brick mansion, its front lawn as vast as a state park. Crowds of people chatted, drank, and feigned merriment. And into that scene I brought my madness. I walked straight into the party, screaming my son's name. "Joshua! Joshua!" All the adults within earshot looked at me in horror. I saw the children playing in a separate, fenced-off area. I pushed through the crowd to get there. They tried to block me with their bodies, but when I brandished the blood-stained knife, they parted like water. I laughed. Everything seemed funny to me. Nothing felt real anymore. Spencer Jackson stood on the porch with his close friends, wearing a suit identical to the one in the old photograph. "Mrs. Hayes," he roared, "what in God's name do you think you're doing?" I didn't answer, just headed for the children. The parents stood stiffly, their faces etched with horror. The children were engaged in cruel games with a pile of old stuffed animals, tearing them into clumps of stuffing. My son stood in a corner, held tightly by the children who habitually shadowed Missy Jackson. "Let Josh come to Mom," I pointed. A boy with a twisted mouth that wouldn't close properly shook his head. "No." I brandished the bloody knife. "Want to see something fun?" Their eyes lit up. They released Josh. My son took 2 steps, then stopped, fixated on the pile of mangled teddy bears. "Come here, son." He grimaced, "But I want to play." "Remember what Mom said last night? We have to go now." The adults stood in a wide circle, nearly 50 yards from the fenced area. Cowards. Missy Jackson pushed her way forward, holding a pincushion pillow with terrible hat pins stuck in it. She wore a dress that, if not the exact one from the photograph, was very similar. She glared at me, her voice shrill. "Go away, you stupid woman. I want to play with the new boy. His name is Joshua, and I forbid you to play with him." "I want to, but I can't. Go away so I can play." "Did you force him here?" I asked. "Is it because you're so ugly that no one wants to play with you?" I heard the children behind me giggle. Missy's face turned a darker shade of red than any normal person I'd ever seen. A pungent, chemical smell filled the air. Spencer Jackson appeared behind her, quickly trying to soothe her. "Sweetie, why don't we go inside and open presents? You have tons of beautiful new things." Missy still glared. "I want the new boy, Dad. Get him for me, or I'll explode right now." Spencer wiped sweat from his forehead. He looked at me and I sneered. "Joshua, come to Mom." My son still hesitated. "Joshua, I'm leaving now." My son's face immediately drooped. "Don't leave, Mom, don't leave," he cried, then jumped over the fence and embraced me. He didn't know what he was doing. "You don't know what you're doing," Spencer shrieked, trying to grab Josh's arm. I lightly grazed his hand with the knife blade. "I know exactly what I'm doing," I said. "I'm taking my son, and no one is going to stop me." "Are you insane? You burst into my daughter's birthday party, brandishing a knife, demanding that your son not play a few harmless games." He shook his head. "By law, I have every right to call the authorities." "Who, the police?" I laughed loudly. "I'm waiting. Let's see if everything explodes, shall we?" His face fell, realizing I knew the secret. "You're putting all of us in danger, your son too. Come inside and talk like adults." "No need," I replied, wielding the knife to make him step back. "I'm done talking to you." Missy was flushed red, as if she were about to vaporize. Her eyes were almost swallowed by the wrinkled skin around her forehead. "I want the new boy," she shrieked. "I want him, Denise." Everyone turned. It was Arthur Brown, running towards us, clutching his side. The clown paint on his face was hastily applied, uneven. "Let me handle this." He held up his hand, signaling us to wait outside. Spencer stomped his foot. "What in God's name are you doing here, clown?" Arthur's eyes widened at him. "Saving your life, shut up and stay still. That's what you're good at, isn't it?" "I want to play with the new boy," Missy hissed. "Not now. Listen, if you don't calm this down, we'll have to reconsider not prosecuting you for killing your son." "Don't you dare bring my son into this," I shrieked, so shrill that my eardrums ached. But she didn't explode. No, it was something I didn't expect. She snatched the knife from my hand. "Ugly," the girl screamed, then plunged it straight into Arthur's stomach. All sound ceased. Arthur turned to look at me. I saw a cascade of emotions in his eyes, all in a fleeting, final instant but eternally etched. Ultimately, a sense of relief. Arthur Brown collapsed, blood gushing, staining his only shirt red, soaking his suspenders. The only living clown in Clanton lay dead at my feet, and behind me I heard a murmur, as if every child in town took a collective deep breath. Clowntown, USA, the end. The only friend I had in town now lay dead at my feet. My son clung to me, his face pressed into the blood-soaked shirt I wore. I heard the buzzing of flies around the remaining cheese tray, otherwise the entire party was steeped in dead silence. Missy Jackson scowled at the dead body she had just created. The act of murder seemed to calm her. She was no longer flushed red. Next to her, Spencer Jackson was pale, drained of all color. "My darling," he said slowly, you just killed the clown." "His name was Arthur," I said, but no one bothered to listen. Missy tossed her head. Who cares? He was just a clown. Oh, how that previously cooing, spoiled voice was now gone, its veneer completely shed. Spencer shook his head, looking bewildered. You can't do that, you're not allowed. Missy snorted. Dad, you should have got me the new boy when I asked. It's my birthday today. If you don't get me what I want, I'll explode. Spencer Jackson must have experienced this thousands of times throughout his daughter's unusually long and pampered childhood. And like many times before, he had to find someone else to bear the consequences of his daughter's actions. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine and my son's. Spencer's face hardened. He straightened up. Well, he said. I didn't answer, just stared. I could feel the children behind me, like a pile of hot kindling, ready to ignite into a furious explosion with a single spark. Spencer ventured a few steps towards us. You too have caused a lot of trouble. You have to make amends. What do you have to say for yourselves? I remained silent. My silence seemed to embolden him. We had a wonderful little community before you came. No one had a problem with it. We welcomed you with open arms after you kicked your husband out, and this is how you repay us. Who do you think you are? I licked my lips, the metallic taste of blood on my tongue. Spencer took a few more steps. I want an explanation right now. How are you going to fix this? How will you make it up to us? I opened my mouth and laughed. Spencer took a step back. I bent over, the cramping spasms of laughter making me ache. Fix it? I gasped between laughs. Fix it? You damn well fix it yourselves. Spencer's face turned a deep red, just like his daughter's earlier. He snapped his fingers. Immediately, the Clanton officer, Ted, appeared. Tall, blonde, and menacing, he drew his gun, pointing it at my chest. By the way his arm trembled, I knew he was excited by the prospect of shooting. Still laughing, I turned to Missy Jackson and slapped her. It wasn't a hard slap, but she still reeled backward, mostly from shock. Perhaps no one had ever dared to lay a hand on her in her life. She took a few seconds to process what had just happened, her breath coming in short, rapid gasps. Missy took a deep breath, then shrieked, a high-pitched wail like a boiling kettle. Her face flushed crimson. She threw out her arms and lunged at me. Just as she was about to reach me, I shifted my body sideways, letting her crash directly into the children's play area fence. Missy, with her eyes still tightly shut, slammed into the fence, getting tangled in the plastic bars. She scrambled up, flailing her arms, punching a boy standing nearby in the face. That was it. The children simultaneously attacked each other, fighting more brutally than any playground brawl. They clawed at each other's red faces, pulled hair, bit limbs. I even got hit in the arm by a flying tooth. The surrounding adults quickly fled as soon as Missy slammed into the fence. I saw the tall, aggressive officer, Ted, also running for his life, sprinting across the lawn to his car. A few unlucky ones cowered under the porch, thinking they'd be safe. A strange calm came over me, making everything seem to happen in slow motion. I suddenly remembered I had to find my son. Where are you? I navigated through the melee, finding Joshua struggling with another boy, one of the kids who had constantly trailed him. Joshua, Mom's leaving, I yelled amidst the chaos. He looked up for a fleeting moment, then continued trying to gouge out his opponent's eyes with his thumbs. I spotted a woman's trampled purse on the ground. I opened it and saw some makeup. I knew what to do. I vigorously swiped 2 fingers across a blue eyeshadow palette and smeared it heavily on my right eyelid. Then, I pulled out a bright red lipstick from the purse. I drew a wide, arc-shaped mouth around my own, filling it in completely. Next, I used an eyebrow pencil to draw 2 pink streaks as eyebrows. Joshua, I called, stand up and look at Mom. Look. My son paused for a second, then hit the other boy on the head again. A moment later, he looked up once more, his initial disbelief quickly turning to excitement. Look at Mom, I said, in the funniest clown voice I could muster. Joshua immediately released the other boy, dodged the wild punches around him, and ran towards me, his eyes shining brightly. Mom, he cheered, then lightly punched my nose. My head recoiled, tears stinging my eyes, but I maintained my painted smile. Follow Mom, Joshua, I said. Follow Mom, I retreated, taking goofy steps, waving to him. He gleefully followed, spinning his arms as if dancing, trying to hit me, laughing and missing. All right, Denise. Spencer Jackson poked his head out from under the porch, yelling, That's enough. Now come back here and calm the children down." I kept backing away, my eyes unblinking. "Never." His voice grew more urgent. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm backing out onto the vast lawn." The people under the porch yelled after us, screaming for Joshua to come back. Spencer promised to give him all of Missy's birthday presents. Letty promised to be his new mom and give him all the chocolate milk he wanted. A man yelled that he would become the clown instead, promising to be even better than me if only we would come back. Outside Spencer Jackson's mansion gates, cars were jammed, gridlocked. Instead of abandoning their vehicles and running, people frantically leaned out their windows, yelling at each other. One ingenious person deliberately drove their car into the traffic, presumably thinking it would clear the way. I could still hear the screams and sounds of chaos behind us as we left the mansion. We ran. I turned it into a game, telling Joshua we were racing to see who could reach the hills first. When he fell, I picked him up. We didn't follow the spiral road, but cut across yards, climbing fences, shortening our route. I didn't understand why no one else fled the town. Perhaps they underestimated the impending destructive force, or perhaps they believed that after all these years, the town would still keep them safe. And so, they died in denial. We watched the horrific scene from above. The explosion was like a bomb, shattering every window in every house. Joshua looked at the spreading fire, his eyes bright. "Beautiful, Mom," he said. Half the town was leveled. No one survived except me and my son. That happened 30 years ago. Joshua was 7 then, he's still 7, he will be 7 forever. My ex-husband died in a car accident 10 years ago, crashing into a highway barrier while letting his 5th future wife perform a sex act on him. I told Joshua his father had passed away. He just shrugged, then went back to disemboweling a teddy bear. I don't think he understood what father meant anymore, or remembered anything about his life before we came to that town. Now that town is infamous. Someone once spray-painted, "Clowntown, USA" on the welcome sign, and that's how everyone knows it. Self-proclaimed explorers sneak into the ruins, take photos of the clown figures, and post them online. I've seen those websites. They guess it was probably some eccentric billionaire's project, or the remains of a cursed carnival. They take selfies with the remaining clown murals with empty eyes on the walls, prying off clown noses and statue arms as souvenirs. A living hell, they say, if only they knew. Oh, if only they knew. They gossip about a ghost in Clowntown, a phantom glimpsed fleetingly from a distance, but it's not a sad-eyed, middle-aged man with a prosthetic leg. No, it's a woman with wild, graying hair, her face painted with grotesque clown makeup, leading the spirit of a tiny victim, always holding her hand a little boy, who surely died in the gas explosion 30 years ago. Occasionally, I still see glimpses of my son, but mostly, he is just what the town made him. I keep him busy, keep him happy, and keep him alive. We live by foraging and gathering. When too many people start to wander too close, I play a game with Joshua. We hide in the bushes, pretending to be special ops soldiers hiding from the enemy. I don't even clearly feel the makeup on my face anymore. Life like this isn't so bad. People get used to things. Everything in life can be gotten used to. And on the day we can no longer continue this life, the day someone finds us and tries to separate us, I will let Joshua get angry. I will not soothe him when the furnace within him heats up. I will hold him tight so we can go together. All I ever wanted was a simple life in a small town with my only son, and in the end, that's exactly what I got.